Lion is directed by Garth Davis, written by Luke Davies. It's based on the book A Long Way Home by Saroo Brierley and Larry Buttrose, and stars Sunny Pawar, Dev Patel, Nicole Kidman, Rooney Mara, and David Wenham. And Lion is the true story of Saroo Brierley, who was separated from his home and family as a little boy in India. He was eventually adopted and raised in Australia, and now 20 years later is trying to find his biological family. Now, Lion was of course nominated for 6 Oscars, including Best Picture at this year's Academy Awards. I had seen Lion before the Oscars happened, but for some reason, Robinson's Malls decided to release Lion like just last week, so I got to check it out again. Interestingly, my opinion of Lion has sort of changed since the first time I watched it. So I will say that, like with Hacksaw Ridge, I still don't think Lion deserved the Best Picture nomination, far from it, but I did end up liking it much better the second time around. The story still gets pretty messy in the second half of the movie, but it still looks really stunning and has some really powerful performances. Now, similar to Hacksaw Ridge, Lion is a film that is clearly split into 2 halves. The first half follows a young Saroo played by Sunny Pawar, and it is great. Like, it's even better the second time around. It's really, really effective because this first half works on a very primal level. It operates on these fears of just getting lost as a child and the helplessness that comes with that, and it's really captured well here. One thing that I only noticed in my second viewing of Lion that I didn't notice in the first time was just how much attention to detail Garth Davis has put into this first half. The first half moves pretty quickly, but you can see that there's so much information just about what it's like to live in poverty in India in this first half, and it's just so quick that you'll miss certain details if you blink. But as a result, it adds this real texture to this first half that just makes it feel real, and you really feel the stakes of just being a kid trying to find his way back home. And what makes this first half work as well as it does is the fact that it's told very firmly from Saroo's point of view. The way Garth Davis directs it, it's almost like a silent film because Saroo can't understand the local dialect, so he can't really talk to people. So this first half really has to rely on really smart editing and smart directing, and it really works. The editing here is from Alexandre Franceschi, but the way it's edited is really frantic, and it really makes you feel helpless like Saroo. This is something that I didn't really appreciate the first time I watched Lion, but the second time I realized like, oh, that's what they were trying to do. With all that said, Lion definitely takes a dip lower as soon as the older Saroo, played by Dev Patel, emerges from the water in the second half of the movie. The second half feels like a completely different film, which is good in some respects, but not good in some others. One thing that carries over from the first half to the second half is the smart editing. It really helps keep us in Saroo's mindset because he eventually starts freaking out and breaking down and becoming more disheveled the more he's haunted by his past. And the editing really helps you feel just how restless he is. And Saroo's search culminates after using Google Earth, which is not a spoiler, that's really how the story went. It culminates in a climax that I feel is impossible not to be touched by. It is emotionally complex, it's moving, and it works because it goes back to the style of the first half, which is just very primal emotions, and for me, it's impossible to dislike that ending. The issue with Lion and the second half in particular is, all the stuff that happens before he gets to that climax, because most of the second half is about these very, very underdeveloped family issues, family drama. There are all these little subplots that have to do with Saroo and like his different family members, and almost all of them are left hanging. I guess the only real plot thread that has sort of a satisfying conclusion is his relationship with his mother, his adoptive mother, played by Nicole Kidman. Like, that sort of ends well, but his relationship with his father, played by David Wenham, doesn't really go anywhere. His relationship with his girlfriend, played by Rooney Mara, really doesn't go anywhere. And then especially his relationship with his adopted brother, Mantosh, like, they don't even try to give that arc like a good ending. They just forget about Mantosh eventually, and they never say anything about him after a certain point. And in a way, I wish that Garth Davis would have directed this second half more similar to the first half, have it just work on a purely visceral level, because what Garth Davis does in the second half is that he adds sort of like this psychological aspect. As Saroo begins to freak out, he begins to see things. He sees like his biological brother, even if he couldn't possibly be seeing him around. And I appreciate the ambition here. It's just that I feel like it makes the tone clash with what the film already was. And like I mentioned, yes, Saroo eventually finds his family with the help of Google Earth, but the way they do it, like the way they have that eureka moment, it just comes across as sort of random. And I understand that there's probably like no way to make Google Earth come off as, you know, dramatic, but it just didn't work for me. However, what is common about both halves of Lion is the fact that the acting is amazing. First of all, Sunny Pawar, the young kid who plays the young Saroo, really holds your attention in the first half, even if he barely speaks and he doesn't really have that many people to bounce off of. It's really impressive for a child actor that he's that compelling even when he's by himself. And Dev Patel does a tremendous job in the second half at bringing all that pent up guilt and anger out to the surface. Like, he's a really likable guy at first, but then all this rage makes him sort of like a guy you wouldn't want to hang out with. But I'm really glad that Dev Patel went that way, and he's really compelling as well, both, you know, when he's in scenes with other people or when he's just by himself. I wish Nicole Kidman had a bigger part in this movie, but every scene she's in, she really kills it. David Wenham and Rooney Mara are very underused, but they're great whenever they're on screen. And the cinematography here from Greg Fraser has these moments that are truly just jaw-dropping, especially in the first half, because the cinematography has sort of like this raw, realistic, dirty quality that just makes it feel like almost a documentary at points. But there are these shots that happen that really make you feel how alone Saroo feels just through the use of wide angles and focus. It's really great stuff. And while the second half doesn't have as many like big moments in terms of visuals because of the change in location, the visuals still manage to convey how alone he feels. All in all, Lion is a really good movie. I think the second half gets a bit boring, but I think it's completely worth it for the first half and for the ending. So if you haven't seen some of the Oscar nominees, check this one out. Alright, so those are my thoughts on Lion. Have you guys seen it? What do you think about it? Whatever you guys think, whether you agree with me or not, please leave me a comment. Let's have a conversation.